Nuh-uh. Look at the aggregate polls and look how long Donald Trump's net approval rating has been negative.
A lot of people will hear the poll numbers I'm about to give you and say, yay, Trump's going down. But that would be wrong. Almost every day, my friends ask me, who's supporting Trump? I mean, the Epstein files that Trump fears aside, the ones that he won't allow us to see, somehow Trump is keeping his base intact. How? Good question. Hispanics who once supported him are being rounded up like it's 1939. And young people who either thought Biden was too old or couldn't be bothered to get off their Instagram accounts are saying, what the fuck happened? Well, it's simple. America is a lazy, stupid country. Ooh, too much? No, you know I'm right. I mean, Trump tried to overturn an election and in the process had his supporters storm the Capitol, attack cops, and call for the death of a Republican vice president. And they voted for him again. I know you're saying, I didn't vote for him. Okay, but what did you do to get your redneck parents or your racist cousin to understand Econ 101 or the events that preceded the Second World War? You didn't do anything. And you want to know why I'm pissed? I didn't do enough either. But what I'm about to show you will illustrate how a cult works and how we're in the middle of the second act of a story that can still go further south if we don't somehow get off our asses and metaphorically put our foot up somebody's bum. And before you watch this eye-opening poll, understand why Trump's numbers are going down and even more importantly, why it doesn't matter.
I do see something of a pattern. Sometimes we lose the forest for the trees, but I want to look at the forest, and it is one ugly duckling forest that we're looking at for Donald Trump. You know, look at this. Negative net approval rating for some. You know, we talk about one poll, the CBS News poll. We talk about another poll, the NBC News poll. Nuh-uh. Look at the aggregate polls and look how long Donald Trump's net approval rating has been negative. It has been every day since March 12th in the average of polls. We're talking about 181 days in a row in which Donald Trump has been underwater swimming with the fishes. There is no good data for Donald Trump when looking at the aggregate and looking overall. He has been negative for a very long period of time, the vast majority of his second presidency.
What about the issues?
Okay, what about the issues? You see this here, right? Is there any shining light? Is there any light at the end of the tunnel? Well, look at the issues. Look at this. These are all the key issues. Donald Trump is underwater on all of them. Trade, obviously, tariffs have been a big thing at the bottom of your list, minus 17 points. The economy, which was the reason he was elected to his second term to fix the economy, way underwater at minus 14 points. Foreign policy, minus 12. And then I think, Mr. John Berman, the key two issues at the top, because these have been Donald Trump's strongest issues, crime and immigration. But get this. He is now underwater on both of these issues, if barely, but he's underwater on crime at minus 2, immigration at minus 3. On all the key issues, he is again swimming with the fishes. Consistency across the board.
It is interesting, though, because the difference here does explain why even with these jobs numbers, which were historically bad on Friday, this is what he's focused on today. He'd rather be talking about this than this.
Absolutely.
All right, what about with key groups that may have influenced his election victory?
Okay, so, you know, we talked about right at the top that every day since March 12th, what has changed since February in terms of making Donald Trump go from the positive side of the ledger to the negative side of the ledger? And this, of course, I think is so important. Two key groups that were so important to getting Donald Trump a second term. He did so much better than the traditional Republican among those under the age of 30 and Hispanics. Look at this. In February, among those under the age of 30, his net approval rating, according to CBS News, plus 2 points. Look at where we are now. Negative 30 points. That's a 32-point move in the wrong direction. And Hispanics, he was 6 points underwater. Look at this. Minus 34 points. That's a 28-point move since February. No wonder Donald Trump's in trouble. He's steady across the board. And since February, when he was last positive, he's only gotten significantly worse among two very key groups for his election back last year.
If this sticks, it'll be interesting to see how it impacts some of these districts, especially in Texas in the midterms.
Okay, here's the scary part. None of this matters because MAGA is a cult. And while I will say that Trump's fascination with little girls is putting a crack in it, you and I both know that while Trump is president, we will never see those files.
Jeffrey Epstein?
We will never see the truth, and Trump will make sure of that by distracting us like he has always done.
It's just attack, 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 keep driving it, flood the zone, overwhelm them. It gets to be a psychological thing. They don't even know what to choose and picking. You see it by the coverage. They're overwhelmed. They don't know where to turn. They don't have the normal levers of power they could grab. And so they're kind of adrift.
Before we talk about crime and immigration, let's take the bottom three issues from this poll. foreign policy, the economy, and trade. With the record-setting low job numbers released last week, combined with the tariffs affecting both trade and foreign policy, all three of which will kickstart the recession that is already in second gear, well, you would think the media coverage would freak people out, which these polls seem to indicate. But it's not the right people. Trump has 80 million people watching Fox News, and Fox News will allow a civil war before they surrender these ratings.
Trump's trying to pump the brakes on spending, and Democrats are going nuts.
And we've already seen how an electoral college and a functioning democracy are oxymorons. Look, here's a crazy number. 25 million Americans do not have a high school diploma, and 80% of them either identify as Trump supporters or say they would never vote for a Democrat. And catch this, 90 million people who were eligible to vote didn't. And while 87% of them said they would never vote for Trump, they obviously don't see what the rest of the world is experiencing, which is the rapid disintegration of our democracy. And the high school graduation rate is lower in red states than blue states. Shocker. But here's the scary part. Even though Trump is down with young voters, every year they stay out of school, they become more likely to vote for Trump. Why? Well, mostly because they live in poor areas, and Republicans have been really good at demonizing the Kennedy elite liberal, which the Democrats have done little to correct. So how do you reach people in a cult when the leader of the cult says that anything that contradicts him is a hoax? With no newspapers or news anymore, and algorithms that cherry-pick content that makes them feel what Trump is telling them is right, how do you battle that?
That information that was false and fake and never happened got released to the public. No, I'm not going to give you a question. I'm not going to give you a question. You are fake news.
Look at these three issues again. How many Trump supporters know what the GDP is, or the effects of macroeconomics, or understand how tariffs hurt the economy and jobs?
Who pays the tariffs?
The Chinese government pays the tariff.
No, they don't.
Yes, they do.
I want to I'm an importer and exporter for 20 years.
Okay.
When a product comes into the U.S., there's something called a tariff sheet.
Okay.
I, as the buyer of that product, follow U.S. law and pay the tariff. I'm an American citizen, an American taxpayer. I pay that tariff to the U.S. government, and that increase in the cost of the product, I then sell to you for a higher price because I've got to cover that tariff.
And what about our tariffs are higher when they go overseas as opposed to theirs coming here?
So tariffs are never a zero-sum game. Tariffs are a tool. So, for example, you might say, you want to sell us your beans, right?
Yeah.
We are going to give you a low tariff if you buy our corn. But the cost of the tariff is ultimately always borne by the consumer.
Don't you think at the end of the day there may be more competition within the market of the U.S. government?
You're confusing the question. This is not a question of competition. The point we're discussing is who bears the cost of the tariff.
You're not going to see that on Fox News, so Trump will just simply lie. He says the economy is great, that he's humbling countries with his tariffs, and he can end the war in one day. You and I know it's a lie, but here I go again. Do you know enough to get your Trumpy uncle to understand? When Uncle Joe says those racist things about Mexicans while eating the food they picked, or propagating lies about crimes they didn't commit, what do you say? He's the one that believes we should have the military in Chicago and LA because, like the rest of us, he's too lazy watching college football to get the facts. And then there's what's happening in Texas. Under Trump's threats, the Texas GOP will carve up both black and Hispanic blocks where people live into voting districts that rob them of their ability to affect change. And while Governor Newsom in California pushes back, it's not going to be enough. And even though Trump is underwater on crime and immigration, Trump is an avowed racist, and he can take any fear you have about people different than you and turn it into a cancer.
Discriminating against and just denigrating white people.
Crime and immigration are all Trump needs, because if he can convince rural America that blacks and Hispanics are a threat to their jobs, their neighborhoods, and their lives, he wins. And if the GOP wins the midterms, Trump will use that victory as a mandate to stay in office regardless of what SCOTUS might say. And if that happens, well, all bets are off.
President for life, that sounds good. Maybe we're going to have to try it.
Look, America has been referred to as an experiment. That's because it's hard to convince people democracy is as fragile as it is and can suddenly disappear. But you don't need to visit Ukraine to learn that lesson because, baby, it's happening right here and right now.
Goddamn right.
Are you not entertained?
It's sitting on my desk.
Who are you talking to?
I could be a stupid person.
Trump admitted he knew Epstein for 15 years.
Are you still talking about Jeffrey Epstein?
Do you have no shame? I'm sorry, man.
You're a nasty person.
Seriously, we need to release the Epstein list.
It's not fair. They don't know what the fuck they're doing.
I don't want to talk about this stuff.
Am I wrong? Yeah.
Tick-tock.
You're in a lot of trouble, Donnie.
I think he's crazy.
I'm Chip Franklin.